Your choices don't have to make sense to anyone else. Whether it's the people on Instagram, your friends, your family, whatever feels right. And I call it a whole body yes. If it feels just like whole body yes, and you're like, this is what I want, then just go for it. And everyone else can just like catch up and adapt.
Georgia Gibbs, welcome to The Shift. Thank you for joining us on the show.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me. I'm so happy we're finally connected.
Me too. Georgia and I were just talking before this about how we've been following each other and chatting on Instagram. I think there's a lot of Instagram friends like that. I'll talk to my husband sometimes and be like, oh, she's an Instagram friend. And he's like, what does that mean? I'm like, I don't know. It just means like we're friends, but just not in real life.
Yeah, we're connected. We know so much about each other, but we've never actually met.
Yes, exactly. For those who don't know, though, Georgia is, well, you're kind of a jack of all trades, but a Australian supermodel turned now clinical herbalist slash advocate of all things body positivity and self-love. And you shared your acne journey and some of your chronic health issues and just are so open and vulnerable on your social media, which has she has over 600,000 Instagram followers who are loyal followers to her journey and just a beautiful human. And we're so excited to be able to chat with you. I want to know, though, if I missed anything.
No, I know. I am a jack of all trades. And that actually comes down to what I wanted to chat with you guys about today, and kind of not pigeonholing yourself and just embracing like the multifaceted kind of different passions and purposes that we all have. And I think so often we can kind of like, we want to pigeonhole ourselves, right? We want to know like, I want to be the best at something, or I want to focus on something, and actually just embracing like all your kind of like wild quirks. I think it's a
Yeah.
really powerful thing to do. So I love you said that I'm kind of like a jack of all trades, because I often feel that way.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny because my producer were like, okay, she's a clinical herbalist. I was like, no, I think she's a model too. And she was like, well, it looks like she's an herbalist. And I was like, no, she's definitely a model. And it's like, it's just so confusing sometimes for someone to be really good at several things or very expertised at several things.
Yeah, totally. I totally hear that. And I think that's something that a challenge that I faced my whole life. That's being like, I've got this passion, but I'm also pulled in this direction. And instead of like, okay, you have to be something, you can be many things, right?
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. I just know you're going to have such good tidbits and quotes here. But before we get into that, can you share a little bit about your career slash journey as a human being and just give people a little background?
Yeah, of course. So I basically started my Instagram account just because I was connecting and sharing with people. This is probably like 2016. And at that time, I'm from Perth, Western Australia, a family of three sisters. And I was going to go to school to be an occupational therapist, and I wanted to be a doctor. And then I ended up on Australia's Next Top Model because a friend of mine entered me into the show, which is
So
hilarious.
wild.
So wild. And then I ended up like modeling all over the world. It just kind of happened that way. And I'm really grateful for that, because it allowed me to experience so many different, things I never would have experienced in my little town that I'm from. So I've been able to travel the world, live in different places, learn different skills, like really learn how to adapt to, I guess, like adult life. I was just kind of like thrown off the boat, like off you go, sink or swim. And that was great. And I was doing, hundreds of flights a year and earning great money and meeting great people. And at the same time, though, it had a huge effect on my mental and my physical health and my spiritual health as well. And in 2018, only like 4 years after I started working full time as a model, I came down. I was really, really sick, and I got diagnosed with a lot of different autoimmune labels, and I lost a lot of my hair, got cystic acne, rosacea, chronic gut issues, UTIs, like all of the things. And that was really my wake up call to the universe, being like, okay, you need to slow down, return home to your body, and like figure out. I'm a true believer, if your body got itself into this mess, it can get itself out of this mess too. So every doctor, and like no one could really help. And then I discovered Chinese medicine. And this is when I had like cystic acne. I was really depressed, had so many issues, and had an emotional kind of relationship breakdown, family breakdown. And now we all know, but our emotions play into our physical health too. And everything kind of crumbled for me. And I discovered Chinese medicine, and it really helped me come back to myself and begin healing. And that was when I dedicated 4 years of my life to studying the medicine full time. So that's what I'm doing now. So I'm a clinical herbalist specializing in Chinese medicine. I specialize kind of in female health, gynae disorders, as well as Chinese herbal dermatology is like a big interest of mine. And I'm just absolutely loving it. And that's why I love when I come on podcasts and people are like, Georgia, what exactly do you do? I'm like, well, I'm just this multifaceted being that kind of models, that also loves, like clean beauty and body positivity. I had a kind of like a not-for-profit for a while for that. And also just clinical herbalism. I'm a true believer that plants have such a huge power to heal. And there's so much ancient medicine, ancient offerings that I think can do so much good in today's fast-paced, stressful society.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have to say, from a personal side, I have followed along very closely with your journey because about like a little bit over 2 years ago, I had a really similar experience to yours. And overnight, kind of got this pain that felt like I had a UTI all the time. Love women and all the pain that we go through. And again, several rounds of antibiotics. Everyone was like, don't know what it is, probably interstitial cystitis, which it seems like it's just a label that they give when they don't really
Yeah.
know. And similarly was kinda told, like, "You're just gonna have to live with this," at 26, 27 years old,
Mhm.
and I do just fully understand being like, I have to turn to something else, like, when the pharmaceuticals aren't working, when all of this, like, Western medicine isn't working for you, I think it's so beautiful that you were like, there has to be, like, it is a whole body healing process that needs to occur.
100%. Like our body innately knows how to heal, right? We
Yeah.
do give our body enough credit. And I think when you're in a chronic health journey, it can be easy to think that your body is broken. And the most common thing I hear from people is like, I have so many different symptoms and I feel like my body is failing me and I feel like my body is broken. And what I love is when I work with these people, I'm like, hey, do you realize that, that pain that you have and your vulvodynia and your interstitial cystitis and it's like, it's all connected in these same patterns of disharmony in the body, which is what I love about holistic medicine. And it can be so easy to get caught up with like, my body is failing me when actually
Yeah.
our body is communicating with us. And she's going to keep shouting until we really listen and start to try and
Yeah.
connect the dots, right? So
Yeah.
they also had interstitial cystitis and chronic vulvodynia, and people do not understand the pain that goes with that. So I'm really glad that you
No.
see it.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I can't say I figured out to your extent, but I did get pregnant and a whole onset of other symptoms came. So it kinda got masked and things. So it's not as bad. Um, but I just really relate to it. And I think a lot of women in general relate to chronic pain issues that we're
Yeah.
just told to kind of live with because honestly, we've been suffering from pain our entire lives. Like and I feel like if men experienced this, there would be, like, a pill for it or a medication for it, like, 10 years ago.
100%. But then you have to like just look at all the data and all of the studies that are just not done on female biology. So it's kind of hard in that respect. But I think there's so many people championing kind of female health now and like really being a support in that space. So I'm just really thankful to all of those people.
Yeah, absolutely. Ditto. So, you you came about this journey basically because your life kinda came to a tipping point. You said you just were, like, getting completely burned out.
Um,
And can you tell us a little bit about that and kind of the lessons that you learned through this health journey that happened really suddenly?
yeah, 100%. So I just was kind of faced with, um, it wasn't just I got acne overnight and all of a sudden I couldn't work. There was so many red flags before that point, right? So there was like, all of a sudden I developed really severe anxiety in my past relationship and I was getting a lot of depression and I was having kind of like gut issues and things that I'd never really experienced before. I've got a long history of gut issues, but like the mental health issues were really what was the alarm for me. And I just
Yeah.
kept it. right? Because it's easier to just ignore it and keep going about my life. I was like 22 and just wanting to like continue on, like didn't want to have to do any kind of reflection of what's going on for me. And I just kept like suppressing those emotions. And we now know that our emotions that are expressed are stored and stored as toxins in our body that, connect with different organs and create all kinds of habits. Um, and that's what I did. I just like suppressed all of my feelings and all of my emotions, just being like, I'm just going to keep on keeping on. And then it wasn't until, and I'm a true believer that the universe like took my skin away from me, gave me cystic acne, made me lose all my hair because she was like, hey, now you can't work. So you can either deal with it or like you can just kind of like sit there and ponder on the fact that you can't work or do anything. So the universe just kind of was like pretty brutal like that. But it was what I needed because it forced me to stop working, to spend all of my savings trying to figure out my health in America, to then really come home to my body and come home to myself and be like, am I even happy in this career? Like just because, and this is what I really wanted to get to, like your choices in your life don't have to make sense to anyone else apart from you. So I faced for so many years my health issues of like everyone thinks modeling is so glamorous. You earn all this money and you're traveling to all these places. It's like the dream career. But is it a dream for you? And that was when I was faced with, is this a dream for me? Or am I doing this career because everyone is telling me it's like the be all and end all to be an international model, right? And I just realized it's not my dream career. It was never my dream. I was kind of entered into this world just kind of on a whim, and I just wrote it for all that I could. And I'm so grateful for so much that came out of it. And I'm a true believer it was a purposeful part of my journey to show me the world and my experiences and my health issues so like I can kind of come back to my purpose. But it was never my dream. And that was the really big realization with my whole health journey was like, okay, modeling might be a lot of people's aspiration. It might seem so glamorous and so great, but it's not what I want. And what did I want? I wanted to connect with people and really connect with women and help them. And then my health journey really kind of pointed me in the direction of how I was going to do that. And it's really beautiful because through this pain, I've come to such a special place of passion and purpose in my life. Um, and that is just kind of the most beautiful part of the whole journey.
Yeah, I love that. The hard stuff always has a way of waking you up to the things that you, I think, were avoiding. And it is
Exactly.
interesting, though, like looking at you, clearly everyone sees you and outward and inward beauty, but they're like, oh my gosh, she's gorgeous. Like, of course you should model. Like, that's just what you should do. And it's funny, I think, like, even people who are born super tall, it's like, well, you should be a basketball player, clearly. And it's like, you didn't choose to look the way you did, or like, why would you be pigeonholed into a certain career just because of really how you look? And it's just interesting that people feel like that's just what you should do, though. Like, whatever genetic gifts you have, you use that to a certain career.
100%. I think when you're young too, like you don't really know what you want,
Yeah.
right? You're just like, okay, I'm going to travel the world and I'm going to make all this money and I'm going to meet all these people and it's going to get me out of my little town. Like, okay, cool, let's do it.
Why
And
not?
so like life kind of hits you on the head with like a health issue or a relationship breakdown or a family breakdown, like all these things that I was going through that all of a sudden the big questions of life kind of hit you. And they're like,
Absolutely.
what does Georgia want? Is this what you want? Or is this what other people think you should have? And for me, I just was like, no, it's not really what I want. So then I went and studied and I did like 4 years of school and I just slowly started taking the emphasis off modeling. And I choose to not like cut it out. I'm not like retired. I'm just like choosing what I put emphasis on in my life to make sure that I'm filling my cup,
Yeah.
and I'm feeling excited about the day. And I never
Yeah.
really thought about modeling. It was kind of just like, okay, paycheck, cool.
Yeah.
You,
No,
yeah,
absolutely. And I think, like, because some people, it's clearly such a privilege to be able to like choose what you do in life. Like, some people just don't have that option. You have to pay bills. I get that. But I love that you talked about just what you put emphasis on. Like, even if maybe your daytime job isn't something you love, like, go find something that you do and just, like, kinda make that more of your identity. Like, do what you gotta do during the day, get the paycheck, and like you did, like, go to school, become an herbalist, like, become an artist, like, whatever you wanna do outside of that to, like you said, fill your cup, I think is, like, a really beautiful to happiness.
100%. And people actually, I had a lot of people say to me, like, who goes from modeling to take like a pay cut to become an herbalist? And it was like, and yeah, it was like, it's kind of like, okay, all right, we're not making that kind of money now. We're doing this. So I completely understand like financial aspect. There is like an innate need to
Yeah.
thrive and make finances. Like that is the life that we live in. And that's why I spent like kind of like 4 years being like, okay, this is my situation. I spent pretty much all my like modeling money on trying to get well, which is the hilarious part of this whole story. But it's like, okay, like we have this fundamental need to make money and survive and live. And it's like we all have this fundamental need to like fill a cup. So like if what you're doing over here isn't filling your cup, then it's like, okay, like you said, how can we put emphasis on things in our lives that really do fill our cup? And for me, that was studying and learning like on the weekends and the afternoons. And like, I'm not someone that championing burnout at all, but like for me, that was just what was really like lighting me up inside. Um, and then like slowly transitioning into like that place of like passion and purpose and fulfillment. And it's just been so awesome. So if there is anyone that's kind of in a career they don't really love and like they want to transition, like you're not going to transition overnight. It takes time. But like you said, just like putting emphasis on things that light you up and fill you up in the other time that you have.
I love that.
If you are listening to this podcast, you are probably a fan of inspirational quotes. And if that's the case, then you should check out my book. I feel that it's a cute little retro book with each chapter being a different emotion and then quotes that can help you with that emotion. So if you're looking to support me or the show, if you need a cute little gift for a friend or just something to flip through when you're feeling down one day, then this book is for you. You can purchase it at quotesbychristy.com, which is my website, or the link will be in the show notes.
Do you have a best piece of advice? And maybe you've already shared it. Maybe it was about not doing what people expect of you or being okay with being that jack of all trades. But I would love to know what your top piece of advice is that you've ever gotten.
Yeah, I think I said it before. There's a few pieces of advice, but like something that always comes through to me is that your choices and your life don't have to make sense to anyone else. They just need to make sense to you. And that's been so true for me, whether it was being in my little town and moving overseas and people think I'm crazy, not going to school and being a doctor and doing modeling, whether it was dating a guy that my best friend at the time thought I was a nutcase, whatever it is, like your life doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. Your choices don't have to make sense to anyone else. Whether it's the people on Instagram, your friends, your family, whatever feels right. And I call it a whole body yes. If it feels just like whole body yes, and you're like, this is what I want, then just go for it. And everyone else can just like catch up and adapt. And that was kind of me with Chinese medicine. All of a sudden, I was like an international model. All of a sudden, like a traditional Chinese herbalist. People were just like, "What? Why? Ow? What is going on?" And that's cool, And it still kind of confuses people now. Like you said, you're like, "What do you do?" It doesn't make sense to other people. I'm like, that's okay. It really doesn't have to, as long as it makes sense to you and it's filling your cup. Because I think so many of us go through our lives kind of just like doing things and living in a way that like we feel like we're meant to, or that pleases other people, or, fulfills our books. Because like you said, in our society, we like to kind of put people in boxes, in places that they sit. And like, you don't have to do that. You just really should live in a way that like, as long as it makes sense to you and it makes you damn happy, like really doesn't matter what anyone else thinks.
I love it. I love that you said people will catch up because it's true. Even if you get pushback at first, even if people are confused at first, people adapt. And the people that love you really just want you to be happy.
100%, 100%. And like, if they don't catch up, then like, it's just a sign to like, let them continue moving on. you know?
Absolutely, because you're clearly on different paths anyways. You're in point A, they're at point B, and they're not willing to go to point A. So we don't want them there anyways.
Exactly. It's like, are they going to evolve with you? And like, evolution is like, by necessity uncomfortable because it's growth, right? So like, other people aren't evolving with you if they're not growing with you. That's okay. There's no hard feelings. It just is what it is. You just move on, and maybe you'll meet on another part of your little evolutionary journey.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like stick to what feels good to you. It's really like that is all
I love
that
that.
yeah.
I love that. Do you have the biggest lesson or takeaway that you had through, and maybe it was your chronic health journey, maybe that's been one of the most difficult parts of your life thus far, or maybe it was something else, but do you have kind of a big aha moment that's happened to you throughout a tough time in your life?
Um, had so many aha moments. Like the last like 6 years, I don't know how much of my journey you've kind of like been on, but it just was like one thing after another. And it would have been so easy for me to be like, okay, I fixed my acne, but now I have rosacea. Okay, I fixed the rosacea, but now I'm losing my hair. Okay, I'm losing my hair. Well, now I've got chronic digestive issues, and now I've got like an abdominal pap smear. Like it just kind of went on. And it would have been so easy for me, like year after year, to just be like, I did something wrong and I'm getting back home, like shortly. Or like my body is failing me and like I'm just broken and this is how it is. And there were so many like dark nights of like, what did I do to deserve this? And I think my biggest lesson and my biggest aha moment was definitely from that chronic health journey that like it's pretty cliche, but it's like everything happens for a reason as much as it's innately sometimes it's just so painful. Everything happens for a reason. Everything's unfolding as it's meant to because you're on a specific journey that's kind of like already written in time. And like every night when like I would have meltdowns about like my vulvodynia and the pain that I was in and no one understanding and like why is this keep happening to me? And it's like 6 years later or 8 years later, it's like those things happen to you to make you into the empathetic person that you are so that you can now guide people on their healing journey. And like that to me, I'm like, "Oh, I would do all that pain over again because it's so worth it. What a beautiful,
Yeah.
like, given out of all of that hardship, right? So to me, it's just like, I know it's hard and things get rough, but like there always is like a gift at the end of whatever you're going through.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I know you've also talked a lot about being in the modeling industry and suffering from, which again, people probably laugh because they're like, "Oh my gosh, you look the way you do and you're self-conscious." Like,
Oh my
where
God.
does that put all of us? And but you've talked a lot about how like people commented on your body, said you weren't the right shape, you weren't the right size. And, every woman, literally, whether they're a size 0 or a size 16, struggles with that. And I wonder what you would say to other women who are maybe struggling with their body image and how you've grown and what you've learned about real confidence.
Yeah, 100%. I have goosebumps when you ask me that question. Well, context. I come from a family of three sisters and my mom, and like basically grew up with just a household of like women that didn't like their bodies. And like my sisters that were always struggling with their bodies, always struggling with their health. So I feel like I've always been so sensitized to how women feel in their bodies from a young age. And I was always thin and like an hourglass and had big boobs and a small waist and all these things that people think it's going to make you confident, make you feel better about yourself. And I think I was probably the most insecure in my house, like most of the time. And that doesn't make any sense to other people because they're like, but you look like that. And if I look like that, then I'll be confident. And that is just not how it works. And it's happened to me so many times in my life where throughout my health journey, you probably see on my page about my weight shifting and my body changing. Um, when I've been at my thinnest and had like a six pack and all of these things, it's actually often when my health is struggling the most, I'm the most stressed, and I'm hating my body the most. So when I actually moved into a place of like living more cyclically, being gentler to myself, like working on my mental health. I'm holding more weight now than I ever have. And I'm so much more like in love with my body because I'm so grateful for everything that it has done for me. And that was one thing with my chronic health journey. It made me really appreciate my body and like everything she has done to like figure it out. Like she was never broken. She was communicating with me because she wanted, she wanted us to like live in harmony together, you know?
Yeah.
So like what I would say to anyone that is like dealing with chronic body dysmorphia, body image issues, like getting that six pack abs and, the small waist and whatever, like, yeah, if you're working out and you're eating well and you're looking after your body, of course you're going to feel better. But like the destination, like that image, that is not confidence. You looking that way isn't going to make you confident. Confidence is truly like finding comfort in your body. And like the only way we can really like cultivate confidence is to really like get real with ourselves and like learn, okay, like where do these insecurities come from? Like, do they come from other people? Did they come from your childhood? Did they come from literally my biggest insecurities came from what a boy said to me when I was 13 years old. And I hung on to it my entire life. And I was like 30 years old, still picking apart part of my body that he gave me a hard time for. And it just made me be like, oh no, I am not an incredible 30-year-old woman upset about what this like stupid boy said to me when I was like 13 years old, right?
Yeah.
So like where did these thoughts come from? Like how did we cultivate this like, bullying mentality? And like how did we learn to just continually put ourselves down and put our bodies down? And I think the other thing is like once you've kind of like figured out like where did this come from and like unpacked it, it's like understanding that as women, our body goes through seasons every month, every year, during pregnancy, during menopause. Like our body it ebbs and flows literally every day. You do not wake up the same every day because your hormones are different every single day. So it's like we're running through these seasons of our lives within our days, within our months, within our years. So like learning to give yourself grace. Like your body is not going to be the same every day because you are not the same every day. So I think that is a massive part of it as well. I think we try and fit into this like masculine way of living of like, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to work out the same and I'm going to eat the same and I'm going to like show up the same every single day.
Yes.
Sorry, like the female body just like doesn't work like that. And then the last thing is just like, if you're having like a really, really hard time, I think like coming together in like sisterhood, like true sisterhood of like people or someone around you, maybe it's a friend or a sister or a neighbor, whatever, but like connecting with them because I guarantee they either currently or have felt the way that you do. And I think sisterhood is such a powerful way to like come home to our bodies, realize we're all feeling the same no matter what we look like.
Yeah.
And just like find comfort, connection, and safety in that. And that's something that has really helped me. I've always struggled with female friendships. And when I really opened myself up to like true sisterhood, it has really profoundly influenced my life and the way that I look at my body.
I love everything you said. I especially love the sisterhood aspect though, because while I do think confidence is an inside job, it's also okay to outsource sometimes because there is something so comforting about like being with a girlfriend and being like, oh, like I have this huge zit on my face, or like I feel so insecure today, and her being like, oh yeah, like I feel so insecure about this too. And you realize like, well, I haven't thought twice about that on your body. And then you're like, well, if I haven't thought twice about that on her body, no one probably thought about that on my body. And I feel like it also just helps put your insecurities into perspective that like you always are going to feel so much more insecure about things than probably what anyone else sees.
100%. I have something really funny to add to that. I
Please do.
remember severe cystic acne. I'm just looking at my skin was peeling off. It was everywhere. And I just started, we've been together for 6 years now. And I hid in my apartment for 2 weeks away from him, stopped answering his calls, everything, because I just refused to see him with him seeing me like that with my skin. And he turned up at my door. My boyfriend, to give you context, is from a dairy farm. And I remember being like, I opened the door, bawling my eyes out in hysterics at how bad my skin is. And he looks at me and is like, "Why are you ignoring me?" And I was like, "Look at my face. Look at my face." And he was literally like, "Georgia, there's nothing wrong with your face. It's a pimple. Like, it's gonna go away probably tomorrow." He goes, "I have literally seen a cow give birth. You think that's bad? It's a pimple, Georgia." And I just was like, okay, I love the context. He literally had hundreds of zits and he was like, "Let it go away. What is your problem? You're being crazy." And I was like, "Well, yeah, okay."
Sometimes you need the snap back to reality, and it's so I
Literally,
we are similar in so many ways, Georgia, because I feel the same way when I have blemishes on my face. My husband will tell you I literally have nervous breakdowns, and I'm like, I can't go out, can't see anyone. But it is so true. Like other people are like, "What's the big deal?" Like
what is
everyone probably looks at you and they're like, "She looks beautiful." Like what I
uh,
that makes no effect on anything about her, but
everything that if you are hung up on something, I guarantee no one else notices.
100%,
People are
100%.
in their life worrying about their own stuff, stressed about their bills and their life and all these things going on. No one is looking at your pimple and nobody cares. Literally no one.
Maybe that's the best advice of the show. No one is looking at your pimple and no one cares.
Literally.
That's so true.
So
Okay. I I don't want to take up too much of your time. I do though want to just get all of your wisdom, but last question. I know you've been following my page. I hope that you're like a quote mantra person. I feel like you would be, but I don't want to make any assumptions. But do you have any favorite quotes or mantras or things that you kind of live by or maybe have just lived by recently?
yeah. I've always found this question hard. One, because I'm terrible on the spot. Second, because like I have so many. I'm very like a. We go back to multifaceted soldier. I feel like I have a different quote like every day.
You can share several even too. If you have like a couple top ones.
Yeah. So I think for me recently, like it's very simple. I just keep coming back to like give your body grace. I think for women, and I'm for men as well, but this is a common theme with all my girlfriends of like so hard on ourselves about quite literally everything. And I just keep coming back to like, just give yourself grace. If you're feeling like this eclipse is hitting you really hard and you're having a hard time, give yourself some grace. If you're on your period and you're like not feeling super great, you're in your internal winter, you don't want to talk to anyone, give your body some grace. Like if you're feeling super stressed, you've got like a relationship breakdown and like you don't have anything to eat and like you need to get Uber Eats, just get the Uber Eats and give yourself some grace. And like this is what I keep coming back to girlfriends of like I just don't know how to fix things. It's like, okay, maybe you don't need to fix it. Maybe you just need to literally just give yourself some grace. So like that is something I did keep coming back to. I'm going through like a rebrand and a shift and changes. And whenever I get stressed, I'm like, give yourself some grace. There's a lot going on right now.
Love
So that's
that.
my number one thing. And then I always come back to through pain, there's always purpose. And it's like always been my little ritual whenever things get rough or like I have a health thing or like something goes on. Like there hasn't been a time in my life where I've gone through something that hasn't purposefully impacted my life in a really profound way. So
I love that. And it goes back to also the theme of what you were saying before, like as much as it sucks to hear sometimes, generally, probably 100% of the time, everything does happen for a reason. And
mm,
I think maybe sometimes we figure that reason out here. Sometimes maybe it's not until a next life or whatever you think is after this, but
yeah,
the reason will come.
100%. I agree.
I love that. Well, Georgia, thank you so much for joining us. I, again, am so glad that we got to connect. I want everyone to be able to follow along with everything you do and support you and just like, don't you just see she's a beautiful person, everyone? Don't you just want to like follow along with her? So let us know, like handles, websites.
Yeah, at Georgia Gibbs _ is my Instagram. My website is www.georgiamaygibbs.com. I think by the time this goes live, my website will be back up and running, so that'll be great. And yeah, that's where you can connect with me for all things herbalism, but I also have lots of fun free resources on my Instagram too.
Amazing. Georgia, thank you so much again for joining us.
Of course, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Christy.
Me too. And to everyone listening and watching, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the Shift podcast. Let us know what you think, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much.